me on the stage today. This is my first time to Inspired, and I kind of feel a bit bad that I'm speaking on my first time, so I need to come along and support a little bit more. We were told to actually speak about something that we wanted to share with the world. And we've been given 10 minutes to speak, but actually it is summed up in one sentence, and it is do what you love. And when I was speaking to my son this evening, I said, what is it that my son's 13 years old? And I said to him, I'm about to go and give a talk. And I want to know what message you have got from me so far in your life so that I can see whether or not I'm actually preaching to you what I want to preach to the rest of the world. And he said, actually, Mummy, all you do is tell me that I need to clean my teeth before I go to bed and I need to eat all my greens. And I said, no, I mean deeper than that. And he says, well, you let me do what I want to do. And this is something that I was never encouraged to do when I was younger. It was something that I grew up in a very middle-class family. My grandparents looked after me a lot, and I was always told to do well at school, to pass my grades, to not skip school, don't truant, don't do anything that you shouldn't do. And when I was about 13, I skipped school. Once, and then went to my nan's and cried and said, I've just left the school, can you take me back? That is how I was told to kind of spend my life and do what I was told to do, really. What this meant was I was a people pleaser. So I always wanted to be the good girl. I always wanted to do the right thing. And when I was choosing my GCSEs, I said to my dad, I want to do drama. And he went, not on your Nelly. You're not doing drama. You're doing business studies. You're going to get a good job. You're going to go and work for a bank and you're going to be happy. So I went and did business studies. I got a job, I worked for a bank, and 6 months later I left the bank because I was miserable. And that's where my life started to go downhill, because although I was brought up absolutely beautifully, it was wonderful, I was never allowed to be myself, and I was forever trying to make people happy. So I went out, got a corporate job, having left the bank. I then went and got another corporate job and did start working in marketing, which is what I love. But I was working for somebody else, and I was competing in a man's world. So in this man's world, I was trying to keep up with the Joneses. I wanted to earn as much as them. I started to buy the really nice fancy cars. I would eat out at nice places. My makeup was the most expensive you could buy because the other ladies that were there, they had to compare makeup. And it was all a bit of a disaster. So at the age of 27, a man came along, and I thought, I can escape. I can escape from the life where I've been trying to make my parents happy and trying to do the right thing. And I got married. And I had 2 children. And I married into the army. And I was an army wife, and that was great because then the army told me what to bloody do. And that was a bit of a nightmare. So I didn't like that very much, so I got divorced. I had 2 beautiful children, and when I got divorced, I actually, being very proud, I got myself into a situation where I went on to housing benefit and didn't know what to do with my life. I left my corporate job. I'd been an army wife. I didn't really have many prospects. So I thought, right, I need to get some control back in my life. So I remarried. And it was a disaster. And 5 months after getting remarried, I got divorced again. And it was an absolute disaster. Now, the problem is the second time, I was like, come on, Mandy, you're making choices, and they're really bad choices that you're making in life. And I realized that the reason why I was making bad choices was because I'd never made choices for me. I'd always made them for other people. So they weren't my real choices. I'm blaming everybody else here, you can see, through my choices. But what I did is, in 2009, when I left the second marriage, it isn't like a happy story. It was a pretty toxic second marriage that I was in, and it did leave the children and myself homeless. We didn't have any money whatsoever, and I didn't have a job. I was living in the Lake District, and I am definitely from the south, you can tell by my accent, and I needed to come home. And when I came home, I was back on housing benefit. And at this time, I was 34 years old. So it was 7 years ago now that this happened, and I realized I had to make some new choices, some proper choices in the world. Otherwise, I'd be miserable. And I would keep making the same old mistakes. You know, that's what silly people do. Marriage 1, marriage 2, and I'm now on marriage 3. So, you know, I didn't make too many good decisions, but this last marriage I actually made because I started working on me. In 2009, I had to make a decision, what do I do with my life? And what I realized was I had to do what I loved. So I set up a business. And I was doing a business where I was doing copywriting for people. So I would write their newsletters and I would write websites. And this was great because I was really good at it. But guess what? I didn't love it and it wouldn't work. So I thought, what do I need to do? And it was personal development. That's what I was missing in my life because I realized that all of the choices that were going on and the bad choices I was making was because I didn't actually know me. So what I needed to do was start working on myself. And actually one of my potential clients, the best meeting I ever had in my entire life, he said to me, have you ever watched The Secret? Now, having gone on my personal development journey, The Secret is not my favorite thing anymore, but at the beginning it was, because it opened me up to a whole new way of actually believing in myself and looking and seeing what I wanted. Okay, you can't sit there and contemplate your navel and wish for £1 million, but what you can do is work really hard and do something that you're passionate about. So my story now, where I am now, is I really did love marketing and I really did love business development. So when I realized and started working on myself, I realized that that's where I needed to be. And since I started working out that if you do what you love in life, the world opens up to you. And I want to give you a few pointers on how you can find how to change your life so that you can do what you love. So the first thing that I did was actually analyze what it is that I wanted out of life. Because I'd been living my life for everybody else. And when you want to live your life for you, all of a sudden you're left with this whole opportunity and you don't know where to start. So what I did was work on what my ideal day would look like. And this is what I would recommend to anybody who wants to start changing their life for the better and changing the pattern of how they're behaving. And creating your ideal day. And your ideal day is literally from the moment you wake up. So if you're going to wake up at 3:30 and meditate, like you've been talking about this evening, then wake up at 3:30 and meditate and start your day off on a positive note. If your ideal day means that you wake up, you meditate, and then you spend time with the children, and then you take them to school, and then you work, and then you pick them up from school, this is how I'm actually describing my ideal day. What I wanted, having had 2 children, at this point, they were 5 and 8. I was a single mum. I had 2 broken marriages behind me. I had to work out what it was that I wanted. And my number one goal was to be a great mum, but also make sure that they didn't make choices in life that would be of detriment to them when they grew up. So I worked out my ideal day. And then what I realized when I worked out my ideal day is that I had to believe in me. And I had to work out what I loved. I had to work out what I was passionate about. Now, I would say about 98% of the people, when I say you need to set up a business and it needs to be what you're passionate about, what you're talented at, and something that people will pay you handsomely for, 98% of the people were like, I have no idea what I'm passionate about. It's really difficult. Everyone talks about find your passion and find your purpose, but it's not that easy. So the first thing that I say to people when they want to find their passion is actually you have to start living a passionate life and you have to fall in love with life again. And the people who find it difficult to find your passion are normally sitting there at 8 o'clock on a Thursday night, I think it is, watching EastEnders. Or they're watching Coronation Street 3 or 4 times a week. Or they're sitting down, they're coming home and ordering a takeaway and watching crap telly for the evening. And what happens is when you're doing that, you don't live a passionate life, you're just existing. So my advice is when you want to find your passion, start putting passion into everything that you do. From as much as how you pour the milk into your coffee cup in the morning, how you get out of bed, how you start your day. Start it with affirmations where you're so grateful for what your life is giving you. And when you do this, you find that you fall in love with your life as it is. And if you fall in love with your life as it is, you can only then start to create and get it better. So when you've worked out your ideal day, when you've started falling in love with your day as it is, you can then start to create your ideal day. And finally, what you have to do is really be very, very grateful for what you have at the moment. Because if you don't have gratitude for what you've got, the universe isn't going to deliver to you anything better. You really have to be grateful for what you've got. Now, in 2009, when I was in this, just finished this awful relationship and decided to set up my own business, that in itself was a massive journey. And what I realized was that the way to have a successful business is know your passions, know what you're really talented at, and make sure someone wants you to supply the value. I want to leave you on one thing, that when you love your life every single day, you have happiness. And so many people talk about happiness and freedom, and when you are free, it doesn't matter how much money you have or don't have. It doesn't matter whether bad things happen to you or good things, because you can turn it around and you can learn from that. But happiness equals freedom to me, and everything that I do is to help people lead a life of freedom. Because if you think it's about starting a business, you are really missing the point. It's about having a life of freedom and being happy. Thank you.